Episode 222 Above Ground Podcast, Conversations of Courage with Erika Barber.
Disclaimer. The hosts of this podcast, Timothy Patrick and Will Foley, are by no means medical professionals. However, having lived experience with mental illness themselves, they have gained useful perspectives on common mental health issues that some of us struggle to overcome on a daily basis. By sharing their stories, they hope to create connection. By creating connection, they hope to help you find your purpose. And through purpose, we can all begin to build the foundation for positive mental health. This is Above Ground Podcast.
Coming at you live with real conversations about mental health from the perspective. It's time for Above Ground Podcast. Now your hosts, TPP and Will Foley.
Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to Above Ground Podcast.
Above Ground Podcast, because you can't serve below.
No, you can't, TPP. What's up, man? Good Thursday evening to you. What's going on, buddy?
Same old same.
Yeah, but we got a little different going on tonight, right?
Yeah,
We got a guest in house. We're gonna talk some serious stuff. It is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, after all, and as we've been doing since we've started Above Ground Podcast back in 2019, 4 years ago, over 4 years ago. We have dedicate September to Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. And Timmy, why don't you introduce our guest tonight?
Well, as you were saying, we every September we always hold space for people, families, survivors, and I just happened to come across an article from Erika Barber where she it was just a little short video and then some words, and she was just explaining that she lost her sister at a young age and then her father, and I just thought it would be a great person to have on the podcast. So I reached out, and thankfully she replied, and she's here with us tonight. So thank you, Erika, for being here.
Oh, it is completely my pleasure. And I was glad you found me and reached out. And like I said to you when we spoke, these are the kinds of conversations that have to happen in every kind of environment, and especially just casual conversations. That's where we need to start getting comfortable with talking about mental health, and maybe I'm not always doing okay.
Right.
Absolutely.
Being comfortable with the uncomfortable. That's how we start. And you know what? And you said it as we were leading into this, we were talking about connection, and it all comes back to connection. So how about we start with your connection to AFSP, because we're connected to AFSP, obviously. So it's kind of a nice umbrella thing here on Above Ground Podcast to have another year and another new friend from AFSP to have, even though I'd rather not have to have that friendship because of that, but we have the connection now.
We certainly do. Yeah. So my connection with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention started in probably 2007. I had lost my sister in 1983. So it was several years after my sister Andrea died. I was 15 when my sister died in 1983. So as a 15-year-old, I was really not interested in working through my grief. I wanted to ignore it. I wanted to be with my friends. I wanted to be just another student at school and not the one whose sister died by suicide. So I was not in that space of really grieving her loss or figuring out what that meant for my own life and my own identity until I was in college. And so I started struggling too with mental health issues. And then that just sort of made me have to revisit my grief, because everybody knows you can't ignore it. It's not going to go away. It's going to come bubble up in some form later. So you have to do the work, right? And so part of that was I was driving to work one day and heard on the radio an ad for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention Out of the Darkness overnight walk, which was a fundraiser that it was a nationwide walk. So it was held in Chicago that year in 2007. And when I listened to the ad, like I had never spoken about my sister's death. There was nobody that really could relate to me. And in that time frame, even early 2000s, nobody was really talking about it, let alone in 1983. So when I heard this ad about, there's a walk and there's going to be people that have lost loved ones to suicide. This is the purpose of the walk. People with connections to loss, to suicide, struggles, mental health struggles, meeting in one location and really having a voice to really honor their loved ones, honor their own journeys, and talk about it. I was like, yes, get me there. So that's how I started my involvement with AFSP, and I've been gradually more and more involved through the years. I mentioned before we started chatting that I was on the board of directors for the Illinois chapter for well over 10 years, and my term just ended. But yeah, it's a great part of my healing still today.
Yeah, as we were catching up, we realized that we were both at the same conference just before lockdown in 2020, which was cool. And I met so many people that weekend, and that weekend was kind of bookended with some, like, it was tough coming down from that weekend. Kobe Bryant died that weekend too, and his helicopter had crashed that Saturday night, and nobody, like, I had just found out Sunday when the conference ended, and I was having a really hard time when the conference ended that time. So it was nice to meet you then, and it's nice to have you here with us this evening.
That's great. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. As years have gone on, can we start with, well, how is it to handle the loss of your sister and then the loss of your father?
Yeah. Well, like I mentioned, I was 15 when my sister died, and my parents kind of handled and grieved her death in different ways. My mom sort of isolated herself. She self-medicated with alcohol, didn't seek help at all. And my dad was the one who sought out support groups. He also struggled with depression and anxiety, but he was in treatment. He was, taking the medication as prescribed and doing everything the doctors were asking, and really kind of was probably handling my sister's death the best. Seeking help, and myself and my mom really were not.
How old was your sister? Is it Andrea? Is that
Andrea? Yeah.
Andrea?
She was 4.5 years older than I was. So she was 20 when she died.
Okay.
And she too was diagnosed with severe depression, but from what I remember, it was a very sort of short journey from the time that she was diagnosed to the time that she died by suicide. And of course, we know that, she may have been struggling much longer than that. It was just what I had seen as a 15-year-old at the time, where it was really noticeable to me that my sister was struggling. So when my dad died 30 years later by suicide, I some people have said, well, it's happened once in your family, almost like you should have expected it, which I just don't think you ever do, right? You always have hope that someone struggling is going to find a way to manage their challenges, their mental health challenges. And in my mind, my dad was the one that was reaching out for help all the time. So it was very much a shock to me to also lose my dad to suicide. And it was a very tough journey for me. I actually decided to stop working for a while and go on disability because I didn't want to do what I did when my sister died and ignore my grief. I really wanted to take the time to feel every horrible emotion and work through it the best I can. I think it was the best decision I could have made, is really to kind of devote that time to my own healing. And fortunately, my employer was so understanding and allowed me that time to really integrate both of their losses, because I revisited my sister's loss when my dad died, so that I could be in a much healthier place.
I was actually going to ask you that question with with your dad's with the loss of your father, did that bring up the past with your sister? Maybe stuff that, because let's face it, like you said, 1983, and even what year was your father? Was it 2013 or
2015? My dad died.
2015. So even 2015, like, people don't really want to talk about suicide. The word alone, saying suicide, it just freaks people out, and the ignorance that surrounds it, as you kind of just displayed with, people saying, "Oh, well, you kind of should have expected it." With, it's like, so I guess, my question, I guess, would be, did your sister's passing come up through your father's as well, and it just kind of,
Yeah, no, it's a good
resurface?
question. Yeah, for sure. And I think what it did too is, my mom struggled too, obviously, with mental health challenges, and she wasn't, besides the grieving, she also struggled herself with depression untreated. She never went to the doctors for treatment either. And so really what I started to really struggle with after my dad died was, I did revisit my sister's death as well. But I also started getting really afraid for myself, because now I've had two people in my family, which is half of my family. And if I count my mother's challenges too, that's all of my family who's really struggled with mental health conditions. And two of them died by suicide. So does that mean that I'm going to die by suicide? That was something I had to work through too. Fortunately, I was I was on the board for the AFSP Illinois chapter, and I knew, which a lot of people don't, I knew the facts about suicide. I researched a lot. I learned that suicide is not a destiny. It is not a genetic trait. Mental health can have genetic predispositions. I know my family does. I know in my family there's depression, suicide, and anxiety, depression and anxiety. And I struggle with those. I've been recently diagnosed with an anxiety challenge as well. So I know that part of my family's story can filter back to me. But suicide doesn't have to, right? It doesn't have to be my story. And I can keep educating. I can keep reaching out. I know it's not a character flaw to do that, or a weakness. And I think that's where we have to get better at acknowledging that. We are all on the sliding scale of mental health at any given point. No one is at this perfect, ultimate, I am totally healthy all the time state. We slide all over that path, throughout our lives. Sometimes we're healthier than others, but it doesn't mean we are predestined for anything. And so I came out of that dilemma really after my dad died with kind of a more solid answer for myself that carries me forward every single day.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you've been able to recover from that and turn such a loss into such a positive thing. I will say this, suicidal ideation is a real thing to live with, and people who have severe persistent mental illness have serious suicidal ideations all the time, and those things are to be taken seriously. No, I don't know if the genetic thing, I tend to have my own arguments about that, just because of what my own experience has been, and listening to yours, for anybody to argue. I mean, maybe nobody's figured out the code yet, but I think some of this is really more genetic than they really lend to, because there's just way too many correlations between all the things that you talked about. And then even when you talk about substance abuse, and then that's a whole other topic that people don't talk about when it's related to suicide, because a lot of substance abuse overdoses are really suicides that are not related or counted as that. Now, as we sit here, we are on the verge of, on September 24th here in Saratoga, is our Out of the Darkness Walk for Rita. When is your walk in Chicago?
The Chicagoland walk is October 21st, Saturday the 21st.
All right, good. So
Mhm.
this will be out way before then. So
Great, great. Yeah, we'd love to
excellent.
have, anyone with an interest, a connection join us, because like you said, it's about connections, and that's definitely where I found mine years ago.
I'm curious to know, as does anybody reach out to you about your sister ever?
It's my friends have, there's a few friends that I've had since junior high, so they did know her. Um, and occasionally they'll share memories of her, which I always love, because there's things I just don't remember after 40 years. It'll be 40 years this year that my sister died in December. And so the longer there is that time frame between when I lost my sister to suicide and now, I mean, my memories get fuzzy too. So it always makes me smile to hear somebody else share a memory of her. Um, Actually, one of her friends from high school moved back in with her parents, who live across the street from me. And so it was really kind of a neat connection to know that there's somebody else that has their own memories of Andrea. And so it makes me smile. And I know there's some people that think, we shouldn't talk about her, it might upset me, but truly it makes me so happy to know that my sister's memory and legacy are beyond me. They live in other people. And just for me to be able to share in that adds to my life. It adds to my memories of my sister then too. So it's great when I can find someone that knew her and isn't afraid to talk about her.
Is Andrea, is it Andrea?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think that having your father die by suicide years later, was there anything that had you kind of not prepared for the actual event, but emotionally prepared? Like, was there anything that, because you went through it with your sister, was there something that maybe kind of stuck out to you that maybe like helped, like whether it was some kind of positive distraction, or a hobby or something that you may have developed since your sister, did anything like that occur that kind of helped a bit with your father?
So things that helped in my healing journey as a result of my sister's.
Yeah, I mean, in general, but I just didn't know if there was something that kind of was already almost in place because of your sister, and then.
Yeah, after my sister died, I was a big journaler. I like to write poetry, and I've always been an advocate for that. And, just getting the stuff out of your head through writing, I think, is really powerful. And so that's something that I continue to do after my dad died. It just helped me kind of understand my own emotions and just get, like I said, get it out of my head so that I could sleep at night. Because after a while, things start churning in your brain. So I would think that was one of my big tools to my healing, again, is journaling and writing. Part of what I did after my sister died is I was working at a children's hospital at the time, several years later, when I started sort of writing my story down. So I was an adult by that point, but I created a workbook for kids who had lost a sibling. And so that was kind of a therapeutic piece for me to do as well. And I'd like to continue to maybe investigate that going further today, with my story about the loss of my dad and multiple family members to suicide. And I journal on that periodically as well. So that's been a big tool that I continue to use, is writing. Yeah.
Excellent. Is there something that in the writing for the one that you did for children that lost a sibling, is there anything that stands out that you could kind of just throw at us right now so we can kind of get it out there?
Well, the first workbook was sibling loss, and it was it was not specific to suicide loss. I tell my story. I told my story on one page, and I was very honest and truthful about how my sister died. I used the terminology, and I really think that that's such an important thing when you're speaking with children about a loss to suicide, is that we're truthful. because healing can't happen any other way. And we can put terms in words that children can understand and process. So prior to my dad dying, I did start another workbook. I finished it. It's a fundraiser for AFSP called Conversations of Courage, which is specific to suicide loss and how do you talk to children when there's been a loved one who dies by suicide. And it's also a workbook because it's hard, right? It's hard to know how to do that. We want to protect our kids, and we think some of that might be in not really telling the truth, but that's really not helpful to a child's healing journey. They're eventually going to need to process that loss. And as many of us know, they probably know more than what they're saying, and they probably know why their loved one died as well. And we don't want to jeopardize, the truthful and the honest relationships that we have with our kids. So there's ways to do that, and I think that's a huge message. Is if parents are not sure of how to do that, or caregivers aren't sure how to approach that conversation, there's so many professional therapists and counselors that can kind of guide the way there.
Agree. Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing that. I appreciate that. I apologize for having to get up for a minute.
No, that's okay.
Writing is such a vital thing when it comes to clearing our thoughts and allowing us to process things differently. As Tim knows, from Tim writing a book himself, it's therapeutic, and I'm working on my struggles with writing myself right now. So, do you continue to write, and do you write about your own struggles now? And where are you with your own struggles? Because you've mentioned that you've had your own struggles. So at some point, those rear their ugly head during this process of cleaning up all the past.
Yes, they do. Yes, I still journal. And, the nice thing about journaling is that you can just tear it up when you're done. So you don't have to save it. You have to worry about someone finding it. You can just get it out and then shred it. Or tear it up, which, for me with anger issues, sometimes about things is another way to do that. So yeah, I still do journal. I know that, suicide loss and my healing journey and my own mental health struggles are not anything that I am going to get over. And I'm okay with that. I don't want to get over that. That would mean that I'm totally fine with how things have played out. And I don't think I'll ever be there, right? I'm never going to say, I'm so glad I struggle with anxiety. But I can know that with my grief and with my own struggles, there are going to be really crappy days, really tough days. But I know when I'm having one of those are temporary too. And there's better days because I've had them too. So having those experiences kind of is a good teacher to that. I used to think, there's going to be a day when I am completely healed. I'm going to be cured. I'm not going to feel this grief anymore. It's just that's not realistic. We are human, and we are on a human path, right? It's not ever, we just have to day by day be where we are and know that it's not forever.
I think that's a very important piece of this is we're human, like you said. We're all human. We're meant to feel these things. We have emotions for a reason, and if there was love present, there's going to be grief present. That's just how it works. It's not, there's no faulty wiring. There's no, right or wrong. It's just how it is. It's a human feeling all these different things and going through all these different things.
Mm-hmm. And that's tough. I mean, it can be very tough on those days. It just feels like this is never going to end.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like you said. And I think, if we have a strong, kind of support system, or even if we just remind ourselves daily that it's not going to be forever. I think one of the most important things you said is it doesn't have to be my story, and that right there is just like that pillar of light and strength. And just saying that it doesn't have to be your story,
Right. And I'm a big advocate too for, I know of people that think there's a magic pill that was going to fix everything. And I believe there is value in medications. I also, right. And I also believe we need to be active participants in our healing. It can't just be done to us or done for us. We have to participate. And sometimes it's very uncomfortable and we have to push through that, right? There are things that I have had to do. One of them is I had to seek out a therapist and say to her exactly what I was struggling with, which I've not done. And that's a scary thing, but it takes so much courage to do that, to actually go out and seek out help, first of all, but then be totally open and vulnerable with someone. So, because that's the way we get better, when we cannot hide anymore. And honestly, the thing that got me to that therapist was the thought of, you know what, there is nothing. And I tell this to my friends, I'm like, it's kind of like going to the gynecologist. And I know you guys can't really relate to that, but it's kind of like, this doctor is not going to hear you say anything that they haven't heard before, right? There is nothing you're going to shock them with. So if it's the worst thought you can think of, if it's the worst thing or the worst thing about you can possibly disclose about something, it's not the first time. And guess what? It's, that's how we get better, is bringing these conversations out in the open, and our vulnerabilities and totally honesty is going to get us a lot further in our journeys than hiding or being afraid of just reaching out and just being completely honest about what we're struggling with.
People have a hard time with transparency when it comes to shedding light on their darkest spaces.
For sure.
But honestly, that's why, I'm pretty comfortable being uncomfortable, but I'm also pretty comfortable starting the most uncomfortable conversations there are. So it helps to break the ice sometimes, because sometimes you can do it in a way that is an icebreaker, that is shocking, but still gets to the point without being completely over the top.
For sure.
How are you doing now? Like, what is your goal for the next year or two, and you're just maintaining your balance in life?
That's a good question, because balance is so important. So for many years now, I have been finding purpose in volunteering, and largely with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. So for over 10 years, I was on their board, and I was very involved in all things AFSP Illinois. In the past 6 years, I joined their Loss and Healing Council. It's a national loss and healing council that is really dedicated to helping further those initiatives of AFSP to helping suicide loss survivors. And the past 3 years, I've served as chair on that council. So a lot of my life has been spent sort of with the cause. So it's funny that you asked me that, because it's this year I've really started, and maybe it's because it's Andrea's 40th anniversary this December, that's really kind of caused me to pause a little bit and say, all right, so part of my identity is suicide loss survivor. Part of how I've spent my life is in honor and tribute to my family, and hopefully doing things to help others on this journey. And now I look at the year ahead and think, okay, so what can I do for me outside of that, my life? What defines me other than loss? So I think next year it's going to be kind of reflective that way. I still want to continue, and I will, with my volunteer work, and helping loss survivors is a passion of mine. Working on my own growth and managing my own mental health struggles and issues is definitely always on my plate. But beyond that, who am I? And so hopefully I will have more answers by the end of next year, because I hope to really kind of devote some time to figuring that out.
As a dedicated member of AFSP who came to AFSP out of his own struggles, I thank you for the work that you've done, and I appreciate all that you've given. And I am so sorry that this had to happen because of the loss of your sister and your father.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. And thank you for your involvement and connection there too. I think, getting involved and taking our own struggles and taking our own experiences and finding purpose in that to make this world better is amazing. So thank you for that too.
I find it very important to remember the lost. My first experience with suicide loss was in high school. A sister of two of my friends died by suicide, and she was in our school chorus. And recently I've actually had a couple of experiences about talking about her, and people were surprised that I even remembered her, but I never forgot her because my mother's attempted suicide twice. I had my own struggles. So it's something that always stood out to me. And for many years, I didn't deal with my own mental health in my 20s. I ignored it because I didn't want to deal with it. I had faced it my whole life. It was just, it colored my whole entire world.
Mhm.
As we start to round things down, what is up with your walk for October? What can people expect in Illinois? Because we haven't had anybody who's actually had other walks to talk about from other parts of the country. So it'd be awesome to share that with people. So maybe we can even steal stuff.
Okay. No, that's totally great. I think that's the way we grow, right? So our walk again is October 21st at Montrose Harbor, which is a beautiful harbor right along the lakefront there, Lake Michigan. So it's only a 5K walk, and some people choose not to do it because there's plenty of other things on site to do. We have lots of tents, tent activities. We have an education tent with all free resources. People are welcome to. We have a raffle on site, so a little bit more of a kind of a lighter tent there, a lighter emotional tent. You can come in and peruse the items, and all the proceeds still benefit the mission to save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide. We have just a lot of activities, some art activities. Children are welcome there. We have a sign making activity area as well. AFSP store with merchandise. It's a lovely event. It's one of the largest in the nation. It has been for several years, and just a lot of people kind of. I don't know if this is true with your walk, but I know there's people I've heard say, well, wow, it's got to be such a depressing place to be. It's an environment where we do honor those we've lost and we honor our own struggles. But I have never been in a more hopeful space either. We're all there. The connections they're palpable. Some of them are lifelong that get established there. There's no having to explain anything to anyone. We all get it. Whenever I'm in the midst of people that have a connection to this cause, I just feel like I'm home. And that's what it kind of feels like at these walks and these events, for sure.
Yeah, we definitely make Rita that way. Rita was started by a group of women who lost one of their dear friends, who was Rita, and they are still involved, and they are amazing women who just have an undying, just want to celebrate and remember. And we thank you for that. And Chicago, I would love to come to Chicago. There's some art in Chicago that I need to go see, because there's some Picassos in Chicago that are leaving soon.
Yeah, come on out. Come on out. Come on the 21st.
Yeah, I wish.
Yeah,
I know.
Can I just send you or call out the registration page if anybody is interested?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
All right, so that would be AFSP. So that's the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. AFSP.org/Chicago is the registration page. And you can walk, you can donate, you can volunteer. We'd love to have you out.
Yeah, and if you're out there in Chicago and you're listening, man, please go celebrate. And if you heard it here, let Erika know you heard it here too, that you heard her interview, because this will be out before the walk. So
that's great.
You had mentioned just a second ago, and even before, Will and I have always talked about connection. And it's just, I've always known that it had such a huge impact and it was such a big variable in this, but I'm starting to realize that it's a lot of people think that they have this feeling that they're alone or I'm alone and I feel lonely, and I think it's really the absence of connection is what it is, because you can be surrounded by people and feel alone,
Yes.
and I think being in that environment, like you said, with other people that can relate to your situation and celebrate a life and remember a loss, there's that connection, and like you said, some of those are lifelong connections. So I don't know, I just felt like I needed to kind of reiterate that again. The connection part of this is just so huge,
It
and
is.
I think we lose sight of it.
Timmy,
No,
you
it's true.
actually, may I just say something real quick? Because Timmy just actually kind of brought an insight to me that, like, I think what I've learned from the Rita stuff and working at this is that I've connected to myself. Like, this has
Sure.
allowed me to help me connect back to myself, because it allowed me to face a lot of realities that I hadn't faced in brutal terms, as saying, like, I could have been one of these people on one of these things. It's just like,
Mhm.
and it dawned on me that, wow, it's like that connection to myself again, it allowed me to see things that I wasn't willing to see or couldn't see, because I didn't know until I came to AFSP that there was language for it.
Sure, and that's why that's why we do this. That's why we have Erica on here, because her story can be somebody else's survival guide. And just something that she said might click with somebody, or something that you said, Will, might click with somebody, and just have that little light bulb of hope, and maybe they kind of further their education on it or interest in it, and it works, but you know you have to be active in it. If you want to go swimming, you can't stand at the side of a lake and look at the water. You have to get in the water and go swimming. It's an active process.
Yeah, this is a very active approach, and it's dirty and it's nasty and it's painful.
But like you said, the connections that you make, and then I think the most important one, Will, what you just said, the connection with yourself. That is the most important one that you can take from this. And if you can learn something from Erica or somebody else, and take something and add it to your daily routine or your daily practice in life, and have your life become better because of it. I mean, that's you know what I mean. That's the ultimate thing right there. That's what we're doing. We're passing the torch and sharing ideas and sharing survival tips and tools on how to make it through this.
That is what we're doing. And thank you to Erica for being here. Thank you, Erica. Thank you so much for just your contribution to the light. Because that's how I have a lighthouse that's tattooed on my arm, and I'm lighthouses have really come to signify my journey in a lot of ways, and kind of how I view how all of this kind of plays in together.
I love that.
And as we round second and we come into third, it's time to end it with three questions. We used to send out the questions because they used to be the same all the time, but we always kind of leave it now just as the last question will always be the same. So, but Timmy, please take it away.
So, Erica, if somebody listening right now, whether they're struggling themselves or they know somebody who's struggling, what what could you say to them? What would you like to say to them?
I would say reach out to someone you trust. Don't keep it inside. There's so many people that can help, that have been there, that probably are there, and have found ways to manage, and hopefully they can be a strength for you. It is not a character flaw to reach out. It is really a sign of strength, truly a sign of courage, and we need you here. We need you here. So so please reach out. Don't think it's a weakness.
As you have overcome or I shouldn't say overcome, as you have learned to manage and live with your grief, what is something that you can share with us as far as your self-help or self-care stuff that helps you get through this?
I think it's understanding that grief is, and I know it might be an overused phrase, but it truly is a journey. It is not something that, an end result you'll get to. There's going to be, I have still had tough days about thinking about my sister's death. I still get angry about my father's death. And some days I feel completely happy, with his anniversary recently, which has always been a really tough day for me. July 25th was the anniversary, 8-year anniversary of my dad's death. And it was the first year, for some reason, that I felt like I could celebrate my dad's life and not be so submerged in the way he died. And so we made root beer floats because that was my dad's favorite thing. So I think, just knowing it's okay to have those years where you're just feeling in really tough emotions, and then feeling okay and knowing it's okay too to feel joy and smile and laugh, and still is part of the journey too. And remembering how they lived, not just, how they died. They were much more than the way that they died.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, what is your father's name?
My dad's name was John.
John. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I mean, how could we not? Root beer floats, really? Like, if Erika, if you've
now
not
I'm craving
to,
one.
Right? But Erika may have not listened to some of the episodes. Tim and I have a friend of ours, Jordan, who has been on a podcast a bunch of times as a guest to come in and talk with us, and we're always joking about root beer, and we're always talking about root beer. So it's just that I got a little tingle when that happened.
Tonight.
I wish I had some root beer. I only have the other kind of beer.
Doesn't taste as good as ice cream, I imagine.
No, it does not. No, it does not.
So the last question we have is, if there was something that you could do or that you would like to see done for mental health as a whole without any kind of restraint, what would it be?
Wow. That's a good one. I would say, and I know we work on it all the time, but parity, giving access, free access, widely receivable access to everyone to care, to help. Yes. And I know that we struggle with that, but that would be my focus, my wish. Yes.
Yeah, I wish parity was like really 70% there. It's hard. There's not enough people. There really isn't. There's way too many consumers for the professionals these days, and it seems to be like we're reaching a sort of scary point in a way.
Yeah, that, and I think a lot of it too is we have a long way to go with our healthcare system too, and really being able to treat mental health conditions much more effectively.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, long way to go. Both my dad and my sister were in treatment at the time that they died, and even when I saw a therapist, I was astounded to find out that most therapists, if not the majority, don't receive any education on how to help, even on suicide awareness, about how to help someone who's struggling or how to help a grief survivor of loss. They just don't have it in their education system. And so that would be a huge ask too, is just let's start educating our providers so they're in a better position to help us all.
That's a good one. Very good one. I like that a lot. I actually would like to think that, more in these modern times that it is added in their education, but I don't know. And I actually never even thought to ask until you just said it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's pretty, that's a good one.
Let me just make one caveat to that though. The way that you are your best advocate or the best advocate for anyone is to know yourself. So go seek out the education, because the education is free. Don't leave it up to your doctors. Don't
Right.
leave it like, don't, I mean,
Yes.
like, again, like this is the argument. You like, yes, you want teachers to teach, but you can't leave up all of education to teachers, just like you can't leave teachers to be your babysitters, just like you can't expect your, like, everybody's just, you have to know the stuff yourself. There's certainly enough people who have enough TikTok, who watch enough people who should know some of this stuff and have enough knowledge to go in.
Yeah, but you
like, to
can't
talk.
you can't rely on TikTok, man.
Well,
I know what you're
I
saying.
know
There's-
that. I
There's
understand.
there's definitely a balance, but I think, I mean,
But
it
you do
can't
need to
hurt for
know
them
something.
to.
But you need to know
You just need
things
to be your own
about the
advocate,
people.
for
You need to
sure.
be your own advocate. But if you know somebody in your own family is struggling, okay, then there are certain things that you can find out that don't take any money or more than 5 minutes. Anybody can Google anything. Just Google AFSP. That'll give you enough stuff, and that'll teach you, at least get you to the next spot, or find a NAMI. There's things out there that'll at least get, or find Above Ground Podcast, even, Jesus, just to hear some knowledge of something. But I'm just saying, like, you need to arm yourself with it too. Because
yeah, for
again,
sure.
like, because again, you know how this is, man. We've talked about this, and I actually took a photo of my doctor's mental health screen sheet one day just because I wanted it for my own reference. And it's a joke. Like, it's a joke. The things they ask are ridiculous. Like, they asked me if I was depressed, and I'm like, yes, I'm depressed every day. I live with depression. Like, that's, like, again, like, you're not getting to anything when you're asking these things.
I just tell them no more than usual. They're like, what does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean? Are you gonna hurt yourself? No more than usual. Yeah, exactly. But and I'm not making light of this, but I'm being honest when I say, like, these things, I liken my depression and things to the wolves of the hellhounds of the old blues days, Robert Johnson's Hellhounds on My Trail, where the wolves kind of come and stay at my back door. They used to leave, they used to play, they used to howl, they used to have fun. Now they howl and play, but they stay at the door and they're always there. And that depression never leaves. It's just managed at times more so than others.
Yeah. And I
Right,
know it
like-
can be hard to advocate for yourself too. And I think that's where we have to find someone that can do it for us.
Right.
But-
Absolutely.
You know, and that's the other thing too, when you do find a provider, you know, if it's not a good fit, don't feel bad about saying it's not a good fit. Like, if their approach isn't working for whatever it is, for your own mental health challenges or for grief support, find someone else. It's okay to walk away, you know, and
Yeah,
know.
I'm
I
so
know-
glad you
Yeah.
so glad you said that, because I wanted to say that. And yeah, definitely. Like, it's that's I think, from what I have talked to people and kind of witnessed, hearing different stories, is that, and that's a big issue, is that people kind of take that risk and take that leap to go get help, and
Mhm.
either they're booked up, they don't have any, they're not taking new patients, or maybe they have a couple sessions and they're just not a good fit, and they don't know, you know what I mean, you don't know what you don't know what to do. So
Yeah,
you know,
there's, but like you were saying, Will, you know, if we can go in with education, then we know what to expect of our providers too.
Yeah, and I I get a little overzealous about the education part of it, but but it's true. We need the knowledge. We need to arm ourselves with at least a little bit of stuff.
Mhm.
So, next time you're at an event, pick up a brochure. Pick up, like, there's things out there. You can find them. Erika, thank you so much for being here this evening. It has been a pleasure connecting with you and getting to remember Andrea and John.
Thank you so much.
Your sister and dad. I'm so sorry for your losses, and I can't express to you how grateful we are to have you on the show.
And
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thanks for saying their names, because that's how we keep them. And
that's exactly, yeah,
Thank you.
it's exactly how we do it. I think we have to keep their memory alive and just keep saying their names.
Yes.
It's the little things. It's the little things.
Yep, those are the big things, right? Thanks so much.
And the
you guys.
big things, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, Timmy. What a conversation, man! Another night, another conversation, and
Conversations of courage.
Conversations of courage and connection, man. And as we roll in through and into another suicide prevention awareness month. Please check out the links below for the October walk in Chicago if you're in Chicago. But if you're here in New York, September 24th, Out of the Darkness Walk for Rita, Saratoga Spa State Park, Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Come start registering. If you're not, get online, afsp.org. Until next week, get well.
Be safe.
Stay
above.
Thank you for giving us a listen. New episodes every Wednesday. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, you can share, rate, review, and even subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. Other ways to support the show: follow us on social media, share the content, share our episodes. You can also buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/abovegroundpod. For further concerns, show ideas, or just to say hi, you can email us at abovegroundpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, thank you for listening and supporting mental health. Keep the conversation going and stay above.